In this video, we will be discussing how to compare and order fractions, decimals, and percentages. So we first need to talk about a little bit of vocabulary. So we're going to first talk about ascending and descending order. Ascending means to order numbers smallest to biggest. And the way I remember this, the A kind of makes a little bit of an arrow to go up. And descending order means that numbers go from biggest to smallest, or they go down. So that starts with a D to tell you to go down in ordering. So let's look at the example with the number line. It says change everything to a decimal, line up your decimals to check your correct order. So the first thing that we need to do is we're going to convert all of these to decimals, and then we're going to place them where they go on the number line. So if we look at the first decimal, we have 0.3, that's a decimal. We have 1.2, that's a decimal. 75% is not a decimal. I need to move the decimal point. It's here behind because it's a whole number, and I'm going to move it 2 away from the percent sign. So I'm left with 0.75. That's the decimal. 0.15. Here's another percent. I have to turn it into a decimal. So it becomes 1.25. And then 4/10, if I know my place value, I can just go 0.4. Or if you need to, come over here, do 4/10, add the 0, 4, 40, and do the subtraction for the long division. Still get you the same thing. Now, the most important thing when you're ordering decimals, and we've talked about this before, is you should make them all the same length in order to be able to compare them. So I'm going to change colors of my pen so you can see where I'm adding zeros. So if we look at what we're given on the number line, you can see they all go out to the hundredths place, except for like that one. This one is a hundredth. This one is just a whole, but if you want to write the 2 zeros afterwards, that's fine. The 25, the 5, and add another 0 to make it 50, the 75, and another whole, which is 2. Make it all go out to the hundredths. Now we need to do the same thing with all of our numbers here. So this will become 30 hundredths. This will become 1 and 20 hundredths. That one's already out to the hundredths. This one's out to the hundredth. This one's out to the hundredths. And now this one's out to the hundredths. And that makes it a little bit more easy to place on the number line because you could just think of them almost like whole numbers. So 0.30 is going to be in the zeros somewhere, past 25, but not quite to 50. So I would estimate it to be here, 0.30, but I'm going to write it as it's given to me in the black text. So I'm just going to write 0.3. So that one's done. Now I have 1.20. Go to your whole number of 1. 20 would be just before 25, which would be here. Now, but I'm only given the number 1.2, so I'm going to only write 1.2 on my number line. We did that one. Now I have 75%, which was 0.75, so come back to the zeros. Where would 75 be on this number line? Oh, it's right here. It's exactly right there. But instead of writing 0.75, I'm going to write 75% because I have to rewrite it in its original form. 0.15 will be down in zeros somewhere around here, and that's how it's given to me. 1.25, here's the whole number of 1 and 25 is right there, but it's giving to me as 125%, so you need to write it that way. You always have to rewrite it in its given form. And then the last one is 0.4 or 40. And that's going to come here, and I need to make sure that I write 4/10. So anytime that you're ordering decimals, you always need to make sure that you put them back into the given form that they started in. So I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try the next one right here. Turn them all to decimals. Well, actually, they're all decimals already. I want you to try to put them on the number line where they go. So if you make them all the same length, this one becomes 30, 25, and 1.08, and I'm going to make these all the same. That one, this one, and then this whole. And now I can place them on the number line. 0.30 would go before, or I'm sorry, after 25, but remember you are only writing it as what it's given, so it's 0.3. 1.25 is going to be here. It's exactly on there, so 1.25. And then 1.08. 1.08 would go somewhere in here. So that's all you have to do for decimals is make them all the same length and then compare them. So now let's talk about actually putting them in ascending and descending order. Now if you like using a number line, you're welcome to draw your own, but I'm not going to use a number line. I'm going to show you a different way to do it. So let's order the numbers in ascending order. Well, if you think about ascending, ascending is least to greatest. So I'm going to draw an arrow up. Remember, you have to always turn things into a decimal. So I'm going to rewrite my numbers over here just so I can write their decimal beside them and keep my work a little bit neater. So if I turn 38% into a decimal, that becomes 0.38. 8 over 25, you need to do long division for that one. $25 goes into 83 times, which should be 75. 5, drop the 0, becomes 50. So it goes in 2 times exactly, that'd be 50. So I get 0.32. And this one is just going to stay. I'm just going to slide it over. 0.41. Now ascending, I went least to greatest. 32 is the least one, then 38, and then 41. But you always have to make sure you put it back into original form. So if I go across, that's really going to be 8 over 25 first, then 38%, and then 0.41. Now, if that mixes you up to go from these numbers to these numbers, what you can do is you could actually put it in order first with the decimals, like we did over on the other side. And then below, you can convert and write what they are given to you in the problem. So let's try another one. We'll set it up like that. So let's put them in descending order. That's going down. So I have 3/4, 70%, and 0.72. 3/4 is like 3/4 of a dollar. 3/4 is equal to 75 cents. If you need to do the long division, you can, but that's an easy one to remember. 70%, move the decimal 2 times, it becomes 0.70. And then the last one I'm just going to slide over is 0.72. Descending is greatest to least. Here's my greatest number, my next greatest number, and my least number. So if I put them in order with their decimals, oops. Then I can write their original form underneath of them so I don't mix myself up when I'm writing my final answer. And this right here would be my final answer. Same thing for this one. The decimal part is not the accepted part. It has to be given in the original form. So I want you to pause here and I want you to try the last one on your own. And there is your answer to that practice problem. Now let's turn the page and talk about the comparing symbols very quickly. So the greater than symbol, you always read it from the front. So if I'm reading it left to right like I read a book, the greater than symbol is this one, the less than symbol is this one, and the equal than to symbol is this one. And remember, we always have to turn into decimals when we're comparing. So I'm going to turn this guy into a decimal here, move the decimal point 1, 2. So that makes this 1.25, and I do recommend that you rewrite it in its new form. Now I can compare. This is a whole number of 12. This is a whole number of 1, so my inequality sign is going to go that way. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to do 1, 2, and 3. And here are your answers for those inequality problems. Please remember, you always need to turn them to decimals in order to be able to compare them and make them all the same length. All right, so what I'd like for you to do now is I want you to pause. I want you to do your independent practice, which is numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. When you're done with all of those, you can unpause the video to check your work. And here are your answers for all of those. Make sure you always turn them into decimals to compare them. Make sure you read carefully in number 3, it said greater. And then for number 5, you had to tell us which numbers lie between these. What I recommend you do is, this is the highest one, so it goes out to the thousandths place. So make all of your other numbers go out to the thousandths place. And you can figure out by looking at the numbers which ones go between. So this is between like the whole number of 15 and the whole number of 500 because they all start with zeros. So 100 falls between 490, 300, 29. None of the other ones fall between because they're outside.